I'm pleased to introduce Jenny Lawson, otherwise known as the Bloggess. Jenny's former book, Let's Pretend This Never Happened, was a #1 New York Times bestseller, and her current book, Furiously Happy, has already been named one of the best humor books of 2015 by Amazon. I have to admit, being up here in front of all of you makes me a little bit anxious, but it'll lessen shortly. However, there's another type of anxiety that only increases over time. It may be crippling or lead to other dark places. Jenny's visited those places, and she's determined to live the rest of her life a bit more happily because of them. And she's wrote about it in her book. It's a journey full of fun, unexpected, and sometimes serious events. If you're like me after reading, you may want to tell your friends about it. On the other hand, as Jenny says, if you don't like the book, then maybe you're just not crazy enough to enjoy it. Either way, you win. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Jenny Lawson.
So first of all, I'm gonna curse, so I'm gonna tell you that right now. So just be prepared. Secondly, usually I spend my lunch having Google entertain me, because this is fucking weird. This is like weird opposite day, and it's kind of freaking me out. Also, when I told my husband that I was going to be here, he said, "Oh, you should check out the driverless cars." And I was like, "I don't even know what you're talking about." He was like, "Oh, they have driverless cars," and I was like, That's a terrible idea. So I'm just telling you right now, I think maybe y'all aren't like in control of that, so good job, because driverless cars, I've had one of those, and it hit people. So you don't put it completely in park. It's not good, and you get tickets. And also I thought it would be really strange to have a driverless car, and you have to forgive me because I absolutely know nothing about them except the word driverless car words. But I hate to drive because it makes me very anxious, and so my husband always drives me, and I think it would be really uncomfortable driving in a car where there wasn't a driver like constantly cursing at everyone else, because that's how I know that I'm, that someone's taking care of me. And also, when I'm, he's always driving, and he's like, where do you want to go eat lunch? And I'm like, oh, let's go get Mexican food. And he's like, no. So basically, I would need a driverless car that would say, like, where do you want to go? And I'm not going to take you there. And that would make me feel control. So I want to say, first off, except it's not first, because I've already been talking. First off, I did not take my ADD medicine today. Probably pretty obvious. But I'm going to try to focus. I did take my anxiety medicine, but taking my anxiety medicine without taking my ADD medicine makes me a little bit sleepy. And then it's raining, which makes me totally sleepy. I don't know how you guys are awake, ever. And also the entire time I'm like, look, rain, because in Texas we don't get this, and everybody else is like, fucking rain. So first of all, good job on the rain, and also good job on like seasons, having seasons. That's amazing. We don't have that in Texas. I am going to do a reading, and this is literally like a page and a half, but that way you can say, oh yeah, I've been to a Jenny Lawson reading, and I'm stuffing a lot of wires here, and I might be electrocuted. I'm sure it'll be fine. It'll be okay. So I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to skip that one, which is a little bit dark. Okay, let's do this one, which is, and I will preface this by saying, just in case you have no idea who I am, that's totally okay. I am weird and more than slightly off, and I write weird things on the internet, and then sometimes in books. And weirdly enough, people actually like them. And I actually just found out that this strange book is in the New York Times list for the 7th week in a row, which is very weird because you look at it and it's like Mindy Kaling and like asshole O'Reilly, and like, and it's all these people that you're like, oh, I know that person, oh, I know that, oh, I love the person, I hate that person, and then there's a dead raccoon. I just think that's kind of nice. So, I found a kindred soul, and he has a very healthy coat. A few weeks ago, I was at the pharmacy picking up my meds, and I was staring into the drive-thru window and thinking about how awesome it is to live in a world where you can pick up drugs in a drive-thru. And that's when I noticed something strange next to the pharmacist register. And I don't know if you can see this picture, but this is an open box of Milk-Bone dog biscuits. And I thought, well, that's odd, but maybe someone returned them because they were stale or something, and then I thought it was even odder that someone would realize that dog biscuits had gone stale, because dogs usually aren't very good at not eating cookies, even if they're fairly shitty. I mean, dogs eat used diapers if you let them, so I'm pretty sure none of them are saying no to cookies. But then the pharmacist came back, and while he was ringing me up, he reached over and picked up a handful of broken dog biscuits and ate them. And I thought, wait, am I high right now? Is he high? Am I being tested? Should I say something? But I didn't, because I'm pretty sure that you're not supposed to accuse the man giving you drugs of eating dog food. And then I signed for the drugs, and I drove away, and I thought to myself, is it possible that he accidentally ate the dog biscuits? Or maybe someone is always stealing his food at work, so he decided to put his tasty human cookies, made for humans, not out of humans, into a Milk-Bone box to keep them safe. Or maybe he just likes to entertain himself by seeing if people will stop him and say, dude, you're eating dog food. Those would be good people, probably. I'm not one of those people. But then I spent the whole day thinking, why the dog biscuits? And so I went back today to ask where the dog biscuits were gone, and the dog biscuit eating guy was also gone, and I thought, can I ask this pharmacist if the other pharmacist who eats dog food is around, because I really need to know the story? And the answer is no, I can't. But I still really want to know, because I suspect that I would be great friends with this guy, because anyone who would hide crackers in a dog food box seems like someone I'd want to hang out with. Although someone who just eats dog food for fun seems slightly more questionable, except now I'm wondering if maybe Milk-Bones are really delicious, and he's just a genius who has discovered really cheap cookies. Cookies you don't have to tell your judgmental vet about when your dog gets in the pantry and eats all of them. You do still have to call the vet though when your cat has eaten a toy, which consists of a tinkle bell and a feather and a poof ball all tied together with twine. This actually happened to me once, and it was the worst because the vet told me that I would have to ply my cat with laxatives in order to make the toy pass through easily, and then inspect his poop to make sure that the toy had passed, because otherwise they would have to do open cat surgery. And then it finally did start to pass, but just the first part with the tinkle bell, and the cat was freaked out because he was running away from the tinkle bell, which was hanging out of his butthole. And then I called the vet, and he said to definitely not pull on the twine because it could pull out his intestines, which would be the grossest pinata ever. And so instead, I just ran after the cat with some scissors to cut off the tinkle bell, which impressively was still tingling after seeing things no tinkle bell should ever have to see. And I think probably the cat was running away both because of the tinkle bell and also because I was chasing it with scissors, screaming, "Let me help you!" I was good friends with that dog food eating pharmacist. I would have called him to tell him all about the tinkle bell issue, because I think he would have appreciated it, but I never found him again because I was worried that if I ever asked to see the dog food eating pharmacist, the other pharmacist would stop giving me drugs. This all feels a bit discriminatory, but I can't explain exactly why. Shortest reading ever. So I've heard that this is the part where we do Q&A. So like if you have questions, awesome, and if you don't, I'll just make shit up, so whatever. So raise your hand if you have questions, or just yell, or I don't know what y'all do in Google, like maybe if something lights up. This is a really awesome place, by the way, and so I saw like scooters on the way here. Are those real, or is that just like a joke? Do people really use the scooters?
Yeah.
Can I use a scooter on the way out? Okay, and then I also heard that you have like a boat that people have meetings on.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have a tree house?
We have a nap room.
Oh my god, you have a nap room? Okay, well that's sort of close. But here's what I would like. I would like for you guys to build some sort of like a tree fort, and then up in the tree fort, it's also a blanket fort, and it's filled with pillows and cats and lasagna and I will be your writer in residence. And I'll just live up there, and if you're having a bad day, you can come up and like put your head on my lap, and I'll just pat your head and go, poor bunny, it's all right. And we all win. It's gonna be the best. Oh my gosh. So anyway, like I know you guys are like really fast, so like tomorrow I'm okay with that. So yeah, so like put that on your list of things to do. But aside from that, back to questions. Sorry. Yes. Yes.
So in one of your stories, you reference a fictional horse named Pony Dancer.
Pony Dancer, yes.
I'm curious how close you've gotten to convincing the rest of your family to live with horses.
Well,
it happens to be a lifelong dream of my wife, and I've also started this thing.
Yeah, everyone should own a Pony Dancer. So, so if you haven't read, I have a very severe anxiety disorder. I also have depression, avoidant personality disorder, and like a host of other things. But anxiety disorder is like the one that really plagues me, the one that I've had to take the most medicine and therapy and all of that stuff for. And so I looked into getting an anxiety service companion, because I knew when I went on book tours, when I'm at home, I stay home. Like, I'm super hermity. I do not leave. Like, even I don't even leave my desk. Like, the mailman comes and I like put my feet up because I'm like, don't look at me through the window. I'm not here. I don't exist. So I was like, I need to get a service animal, and I thought, well, I'll maybe like my cats, but one of my cats has explosive traveler's diarrhea, and I was like, that is not gonna be like calming on an airplane. So I was like, okay, well, I'll call around and find out, because I have a dog, Dorothy Barker, and I was like, maybe I can teach Dorothy Barker to be, and like turns out, by the way, my dog has anxiety disorder, which, Jesus, like, I was like, oh, now I get it, now I get why I was attracted to this dog. But I called the, there's like a place that, certifies you, and I called my shrink, and she was like, this is who you call, and they will set you up and see if this is a good fit for you, and they have to be specially trained. And when I called, they were like, well, first of all, you can't use cats as service animals because they are not good service animals, because they're assholes. And I guess it's probably true. But she was like, here are the two animals that have been actually approved as actual service animals are dogs and ponies. And I was like, ponies? And she was like, no, yeah, seriously. Ponies are they're very smart. They recognize when you're anxious, and they respond in the same way that any trained service animal dog would. And so I said, I think I need to get a pony and take him with me when I tour, and he'll just like stand in the aisle, and I'll braid his mane, and I'll name him Pony Danza, and he'll be my medicinal pony, and they cannot throw you off the plane, because this is I have a disability, and this is my service horse, and I was so excited about it, and so I called different places, and they were like, oh yeah, we can set you up with where, and I was like, so what do I do? Like, do I put it in the backyard? And they were like, no, it lives in the house with you. It's like a potty trained, right? It's like a large litter box, basically, is what you have. And my husband was like, okay, no, for several reasons. First of all, I'm the one that changes the litter, and I'm not changing the litter of a horse. And secondly, I know you, and you cannot stop with just one. You'll become like crazy horse lady. We'll have like 18 horses in bed with us at night, like brawling up, going like, hey there, And so far he still says no, but I think it's gonna happen. I think it's eventually gonna happen. Just I need to find the right pony dancer. But you don't run into like a lot of just like stray ponies, like that. If you buy a stray cat, they're like, okay, I guess you can keep it. So what I need to do is I need to find a pony and let it go, and then find it again and be like, Victor, nobody wants this pony. Oh my God, we should keep it. It'll totally work. Sorry, that was a really long rambling story. The answer is no. I don't have a horse. Next question. If there is one, it's just an empty microphone. I think it's the microphone that's scary. That's what it is.
text the internet for questions, because I was too anxious for one, but nobody's asked one yet. It's really shitty. When you're feeling really shitty and you don't want to do anything, how do you stay motivated to actually blog craziness? Like, get up and do it?
That is a really good question. Honestly, and I wish I had a better answer than that, the answer is I don't. When I'm having, especially if I'm in the middle of a depressive episode, and my depression kind of comes and goes, it's strictly chemical, it's a serotonin sort of thing. But when it comes to true depressive episodes, I usually have like a couple a year, and when they hit, I cannot do anything at all. My only goal is just to stay alive and to remind myself, depression lies, I'm supposed to be here, everything in my head is telling me about how everybody would be better off without me, but that's not true, and it's gonna be okay, and just keep breathing, and every day I wake up and I'm like, is it gone yet? Nope, but maybe tomorrow. And I've sort of given myself permission to have those weeks of survival, and instead of feeling like, I'm a failure, I'm just laying here for 2 weeks watching Doctor Who on repeat, instead of being like, oh, like what a loser I am, instead I think, I'm surviving, and there are so many people who don't survive depression. I mean, it can be fatal in a lot of cases, and the fact that every single day I wake up and I'm like, well, I'm still alive, and I'm still breathing, and I might even take a shower today. And those are the victories that you have to celebrate. When I was writing just my blog, I was very afraid of talking about the fact that I had depression and anxiety, and I definitely think the stigma's still there. It's not as bad as it was. This was, I guess, 7 years ago, maybe, when I kind of came out about it. And when I wrote about it, in my family, there's lots of mental illness, and in my family, you do not talk about it. It's very, this is your own personal secret, and nobody knows, and it's not until you grow up and you're like, oh, that's the reason why that person disappeared, because they were in the mental institution. Oh, I did think it was sort of strange, that they just disappeared for a while, and then they came back and kept talking about electroshock therapy. Well, whatever, that's fine. So I was the first person in my family to kind of come out about it, and my family they were supportive, and that they were like, you do what's right for you, but don't drag us into this, and also just be careful, because you don't know how people are going to react to this. But I felt like I didn't have any other choice, because I was writing, and I typically write funny, weird, irreverent sort of stuff, and during those periods when I knew that I was going to have this downtime and never be able to really focus, I would have this this backlog of drafts, and I would post those instead and say hey, there you go. And I would approve comments, and the comments would be like, oh, you're so funny, you have such a great life. And at the same time, I'm just laying there thinking I haven't showered in 3 days. I cannot make myself eat soup because I feel unworthy of soup. And I thought, I'm creating this false history. And so that's when I decided that I would be upfront about it and just say it. And instead of people running from me, I had thousands of people who came out and said, me too. I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one who felt like an imposter or a fraud or worthless. And what's really amazing about that is that in the time since I first came out with that post, I've had so many people who have come up to me and who have said, I was actively in the process of planning my suicide, and I decided to stop and to get help, not because of what you wrote, but because I saw thousands of people responding to you and saying, me too, I feel the same way. And I realized if all these people feel that way, then obviously depression is lying to us, and that this is not something that I'm going through myself just completely alone. And so I decided to get help. And now here I am, and here are my kids, or here are my parents, and here are all these people who, had no clue that I was, going through this. And I always want to tell, I wish I could go back and tell all the people who, especially like anonymously, just kind of shouted out into the void and said, me too, I feel the same way, that single act of just shouting out into the darkness may have saved someone's life. That may have been that one comment that pushed someone into saying, okay, all right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get help. So it's sort of amazing the way that each of us touches other people in ways that we cannot possibly imagine. And I think it's just really good to kind of stop every once in a while and just think, the world would be a worse place without you. It would. You bring so much more wonderful things into your life than you will ever know, and you affect the world in such great ways. Sorry.
So I'm a newer fan, so you may actually talk about this in some of your blogging or your books, but I'm very curious about humor as a coping mechanism for mental illness and depression. I ask in particular because I've noticed a lot of the comedians, for instance, that I think are by far the funniest. If you see interviews with them where they talk about their home lives, or their married lives, or their divorced lives, or any number of things, they seem like some of the most unhappy people I've ever encountered.
Yes.
And I really started thinking about this again because my best friend growing up attempted suicide last year. Thankfully, he's gotten help, but he was, laughed the most, made the most jokes, we had the most, laughing sort of times. And at first I was really surprised, and then I started thinking about it. I was like, well, maybe that's why. That was why he was, one of the funnier people I knew, is that was just how he was dealing with a lot of issues. So I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
That's a really good question. I don't know who it was that said it, that comedy equals tragedy plus time. And it really is true, except that for a lot of us, we don't have time. And so we're like, just go straight for the tragedy. I think there is something so wonderful about taking something frightening and horrifying and awful and laughing at it, and it turns it from this enormous big monster into something smaller, into something that you can look at, and suddenly you're not as intimidated by it. I think there are lots of different ways of coping, but for me, humor is absolutely the way that I do it. And I actually do it I do it at funerals. I do it in completely inappropriate places. And I do it with anytime I'm having to deal with something. If I have rheumatoid arthritis and I have miscarriage and all sorts of stuff. And when it comes right down to it, the moments that were the most healing to me were the moments when I could look back and think of something funny that came from that and laugh, because laughter is such a universally human thing. I don't know if you follow me on Twitter for the last week, I wrote this tweet just as I was leaving the airport, and I was getting on the plane, and I said that the lady handed me my ticket, and she said, have a great flight. And I said, thanks, you too. And so I tweeted that, and I was like, I can never come back to this airport again. And and it was just like a throwaway, sort of thing. But what happened was I landed, and there were thousands of people who were like, oh, you think that's bad? And they started sharing their terrible things. And they were like, I'm not even kidding with you. They were so funny. I'm not a laugh out loud kind of person. I was laughing so hard. First of all, I had tears rolling down my face. Hotel security had to be called because they thought that something had happened to me. And they were like, are you okay, ma'am? Has someone hurt you? And I'm like, puffy, swollen face, tears. And I'm like, no, this is how I look when I'm happy. And they were like, are you alone? We need to do a welfare check. And it's just me and the internet, But what's really fantastic is, first of all, and I retweeted so many that people, some people had put me on mute because their notifications got blown up, and they were like, I'm not allowed to get any more notifications today now, thanks very much. But so many people followed it and got into it and just loved the universal idea that once you laugh at the most horrifyingly embarrassing, terrible thing, but it becomes something that you are a part of laughing at it instead of it possessing you. Plus, you would see so many people responding to that one person who would just sort of shout out and be like, one time, I thought there was a bug in my pants, and then I started to shake it out, and it was yesterday's underwear, and it was in front of, everyone that I knew, and they would write like, oh, God, why did this happen? And like 1,000 other people would write, and they'd be like, oh my God, that happened to me, I thought I was the only person, oh my God, what? Me too! And they would get, and all these people who are saying like, okay, so I just shared the most mortifying moment of my life, and it just got favorited 8,000 times. What? That's what I'm going to be like known for? I'll take it. And I think because it is such a universal thing that shame and fear and embarrassment and mortification, and there's such a wonderful healing process of laughing at that. And actually, weirdly enough, like the New York Times picked it up and they were like, oh, let's do a story about this. And I was like, okay. And they were like, oh, we want to talk to you. And I was like, I don't like to talk to people on phones because I'm weird, but you can like send me an email. And so I, just wrote, and I was like, yeah, this happened and it was funny. I don't know. And so they were like, well, let's bring in a psychiatrist. And so like the bottom part was like, it was like a psychiatrist like saying, this is the reason why this is funny. And I was like, okay, whatever. But I thought it was so great that it was like, it was a story about tweets, and they were like, let's bring in the professionals because what the fuck is going on here? But anyway, yeah. Sorry. Yes.
So I thought that would be a great idea to ask you for advice. And I have imposter syndrome, and I know a lot of other people in this room do too. So my question is, what do I do when they find me?
Such a good question. So first I'll answer your question, then I'll go back to talking about it. So what do you do when they find you? You say, I'm so glad to be home, because everyone feels like that. And the people who are going to find you are all of us who are going to say, oh, I have that too. I have that constant fear that at any moment somebody's going to say, oh, you're not that smart. Oh, you're not that funny. Oh, you have just weaseled your way into pretending that you're a human, and you are not. I know you. What I think is so interesting about imposter syndrome is that when I started writing about it, so many people would respond and say, oh, I didn't even know there was a word for it, but yes, I have the same issue. What I thought was really amazing is how many people I absolutely adore and respect who emailed me and said, I have this too. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what? How in the world? When I did the book trailer for this book, I was like, I don't want to do like a real trailer. Let's just do something where people hold up signs and they say, I'm broken because, and on the other side it says, but I'm furiously happy because you can't stop the fact that we're all broken. But you can look at some of the good things that can come from the broken, or the things that we have inside of us. And so I just like basically went out on Facebook and said, do you feel comfortable sharing this? And one of the people who said, I really want to share was Pat Rothfuss. And if you don't know him, he's a fantastic writer, and you should read everything he's ever written. He's so, so good. It's one of my absolute favorites. And he struggles with imposter syndrome, I think, even more than I do. And that he held up, and I think most people just looked at him and they were like, oh, who's this like bushy-faced stranger, instead of being like, oh, this is this like super important, fantastic science fantasy author who people adore and love. And he held his up and it said, I'm broken because I feel like a failure every day. And then when he turned his around, it said, but I'm furiously happy because some days I can string together 5 perfect words. And I thought that was such a wonderful thing, because it was all about, recognizing the fact that we are slow and we are human, and we all, struggle in different ways, and we compare ourselves to people. I always compare myself to like Stephen King or Neil Gaiman, like they get on a plane and then the plane lands and they're like, I wrote a book while I was on the plane, here it is, it's a bestseller. And I'm like, oh, how do you do this? Because it took like this 14 years to get my second book out. And I think really what I've learned is the importance of realizing that we all kind of work at our own speed and we all have different ways of recognizing what success sort of looks like. And recognizing it, one of the things that I had to work with in therapy was with my first book, I was really afraid that the book would be successful because I was like, I don't know what that would look like and I don't know what that would mean for me and I don't think I could handle it. I think I would be really embarrassed and uncomfortable. And even today I have a hard time when people are like, oh my God, I love your book. And I'm like, no, you don't. You really don't. You should get out more. I just say, where they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to get to meet you. I'm like, I'm going to disappoint you. I'm sorry, I have nothing for you. And I have to just remind myself that just like everybody else, that we all feel like failures. And if you don't feel like a failure, you're probably a sociopath. And not that that's necessarily a bad thing. Like my husband has some super sociopathic tendencies. He's very successful. As a matter of fact, most like really successful people are kind of sociopaths, and that's what makes them good at their job. So if you're sitting here and you're like, what the fuck is she talking about? You're probably really successful and a sociopath. But that's okay, because you're probably not a psychopath, and those are the ones that kill people. And if you kill people, don't do that. That's my advice to you. This is all really good advice. You should be writing that down. Don't kill people. Oh my gosh, it's brilliant. Sorry.
Hi. First I wanted to say thank you. I'd never heard your name before this talk was announced last week, but when I realized you were the Bloggess, I put two and two together because between your blog and Alec Rosh's Hyperbole and a Half, my best friend back in Canada, she found the courage to similarly, write some of her, awful experiences of, terrible clinical depression and so on, and share that. And although, there's probably about 10 of us right now that read her blog and comment and so on right now, I wanted to, sort of preemptively ask you that the world is all, sorry, not the world, the internet in particular, comment sections tend to be full of, vitriol and vile from, pseudo-anonymous people and so on. And I was wondering what your experience was there, how you deal with that, and, maybe I can help prepare Jess for that, first god-awful experience.
So I do sometimes get nasty comments. I think we have a tendency to overuse the word troll because a lot of times we'll say troll, but really it's just a critic. And there is a difference. I'll have people who will just be like, I don't think this is very funny. Or, or something like that. And some people will be like, oh, what a terrible troll. And I'm like, not really. Like, that's probably my mom. Like, whatever. You just give it feedback. That's fine. For me, though, there's a couple of things. First of all, what is it called? Kismet or something? I don't know. Whatever my blog software is, it catches the first time somebody leaves a comment, it has to be approved, and then after I've approved it once, then you can leave a comment forever. So if somebody typically wants to leave a really horrid comment, and I do get them, and for me, a horrid comment is, I think you should be raped to death. Which, weirdly, I get that, not uncommon. It's more than once, and I'm like, is this the same person? I don't think so. A little confusing. But what happens is, it gets caught in moderation, and those people want to see you cry. That's their job. They really want that. And so what I do is I go in and I approve their comment and I leave their name and all their information and all that stuff. But I change their comment from, you whore, you should be stabbed, to I wish I could be just like you, you're my hero. And it's lovely because they want to, they're constantly refreshing because they want to see your response, right? And then they'll write again and they'll be like, I never said that, I never said anything like that, and I'll change that comment to, I wish I could wear your skin like a jacket. I have never had anyone come back more than 3 times. And I think it's really wonderful because the internet, your blog is your house. And so you should be entertained by it. So that's one of them. The other one is, and this one, that one I have fun with. But this one's a little petty, but still I do it. Sometimes someone will leave like a really long comment, and it's almost like a dissertation, and it'll be like, this sophomoric puerile love is the reason of the civilization crashing, and it'll be like I'll have to like pull out a dictionary to be like, I don't even know some of these words, what? And you can tell that what they want is they want it to be approved, so they can show it to their friends, and they can be like, yeah, that girl that was on like the front page of Park for some reason. Also, why am I on the front page of Park? I love you, Drew. Stop putting me on the front page of Park. That's where like so like I get lots of great comments too, but every time it's on front, I'm always like, it's not news. My blog is not news. But so it'll be like this long dissertation, and that they want it to be approved so they can show it to everybody else and be like, see, I took her down, okay? And I'll approve the comment, and it'll be exactly the right way, except I will go in and I will misspell several of their words. Because then later they're like, yeah, oh my God, oh my God. Oh my God, I cannot believe it. And then there's no way they're gonna be like, yeah, check out what they're gonna be like, no, just ignore that one. Don't go there, it's fine. No, let's talk about something else. Which I think is really wonderful. When the book came out, because I have avoidant personality disorder, it's like social anxiety disorder on speed, and so whenever somebody would like say something bad to me on the blog or something, usually anything they've said, I've already said about myself way worse. And so typically I'll be like, actually let me come over here because I already insulted myself in a much better way than you did, and so let's do that. But when the book came out, it was the first time that I didn't have control over like what happens with the like reviews and stuff like that. And when the first book came out, before it actually hit the stands, it got a review from a trade review, which I didn't even know that was a thing, but like there's like 4 houses that you want to review your stuff and it's important or whatever. And I had no idea. I had no idea what anything was, but I got this review and it was a really bad review. I mean, like so bad that I kind of looked at it and was like, was this even the right book? Like, oh my God, it was so bad. And I couldn't write for about 2 weeks after that. I couldn't write anything because all I could think of was that review, even though my editor and my agent and everybody, they were like, that's just one person. That's not the whole house. Just one person was assigned to that book. They don't know you. They may have just glanced at it. They got paid $20 for it. It's okay. But it really affected me. And so I ended up getting other people to kind of read the reviews and kind of tell me like, here's something legitimate that you do need to be concerned about for your next book, and there's some other stuff that you can just ignore, which is really helpful. What was also really helpful is a couple months later, the exact same trade publication reviewed the audiobook of the same book, of Let's Pretend This Never Happened, and they were like, a tour de force! And I was like, it's the same fucking book. It is the same book, except I read it out loud to you. That is the only difference. And that's when I realized that it really does come down to each individual person. And when some people will come up and they'll be like, oh, I really don't like your work. First of all, that's weird because you don't have to tell me, but like that's fine. But what I always say is, it's okay, it's not for everyone. Because it's not. Because if you make something that no one hates, how boring would that be? It would be toothless and awful, and you would just be like, oh yeah, I guess, whatever. Like, you almost kind of want at least a couple of people to say, I cannot believe that you just said that you think that Jesus should be classified as a zombie because he came back from the dead. You want a couple of people to say, no, that's not okay. So that everyone else who comes and says, oh my God, I thought that too, why is that? Why are we drinking the blood of the God? Are we vampires? What's happening? And suddenly you're like, oh, I'm with my people. And you realize that maybe those people, maybe it's just like 0.1% of the population who thinks the same weird stuff that you do. But the wonder of the internet is that instead of, when I grew up and I was in this tiny little town surrounded by tractors and I was like the one goth kid in like the middle of a cornfield, and now I go out and I'm like, oh, I found my people. Like, I'm not alone. I'm completely not alone. Even though it's just that 0.1%, we make such a difference. That 0.1% is loud when you get us all together. Well, not really loud because we're all kind of hermity and we're kind of like hiding under our chairs, but we take up a lot of chairs and we will make people feel very uncomfortable. And I think that is a truly wonderful thing.
Thank you. I was trying to figure out what to do about that. So I've been reading like the reblogs that you've done of the Twitter comments that you've been getting, and it's like a perfect minefield of amusement. So it's like I'll read 10 of them, and I'm like, okay, they're okay, and then I'll hit the one, and it's just like all of a sudden I'm like, it's okay to read this in public, and then I start laughing really, really hard, and it's really embarrassing. So I wanted to know if you had any, like, what do you do when you hit a dry spell? Like, from a writing perspective, like, particularly when it's based on, like, you know, that feeling of not being good enough or not being able to accomplish what you want to do. Like, how do you handle that?
That actually happens to me quite a lot, and whenever I have a dry spell or writer's block, if it happens for a day or two, I'm like, oh, that's okay, it's gonna work. It's not uncommon for me to have like a week where I cannot write anything. Nothing is funny, nothing is interesting. And at a certain point, I start to think, I will never write again. And I did that before my first book, all the way through my first book, through my second book. And you know, you get to this point where you start to realize, well, it's always worked out before. Eventually I'll have something to say again. One of the things that I can say is I think so often we think that there needs to be like a lot of material, that if you're not constantly entertaining people, that they're gonna go away. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think in a lot of cases, like Ali Rosh is a perfect example. I mean, she'll go a year without writing and she's just like, no, I'm going in hiding, like, not part. And then she'll write something and everyone on the internet is like, oh, Ali, she's back, it's okay. And I think that people understand that, and they understand that you're gonna have those dry spells that everyone does, and that it's not just when it comes to writing, it comes to creativity, or maybe it's about a project that you're working on, or maybe it's a painting, or maybe it's everything that you do, especially if you do it and you're like, oh, I've got it and nailed it, oh, it's perfect, and then you'll have that week where nothing works and you just think, well, I guess that was it. I guess that was as good as it ever gets. And then something happens, and for me, it'll be like a single word, or it'll be a conversation that I'm having, and I will just be like, shut up, no one talk, and I'll run to my computer, and I'll like, and it really feels like head constipation. And like suddenly you're like, oh my God, finally, like I have not shit in weeks. And now but that's what it feels like. It's like, oh my God, I can do this. I can totally do this. And it's such a great thing. And I think giving yourself permission to, I always call it like refill your creative cup. And that looks like different things for different people. And so for me, sometimes it means I have to read all sorts of funny blogs and funny books. Sometimes I just have to watch TV for a week. Sometimes I have to force myself to get out of the house to do something. But I just have to know that eventually something's gonna happen and it's gonna click and I'm gonna be like, oh, I got it. Oh, okay, it's still there. But just reminding yourself that is still there is a good thing, because it is.
I just want to thank you very much for joining us today. We'll have sign right over here. Thank you.
Awesome.